Grace and peace to you in the name of the triune God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen. What has been stressing you out lately? For me, lately, it has involved personnel changes in my department at Mosaic and the need to help people navigate increased workloads while looking for new staff, while helping recently hired staff navigate the steep learning curve of their positions. Some shifting of responsibilities among my peers has resulted in an additional project that I am responsible for that I need to quickly get up to speed on. Balancing the sometimes competing needs of Mosaic and church ministry when synodical requirements for education and development conflict with other responsibilities. Hope that our transition here to the narrative lectionary next month goes smoothly and is received well. Worry about Jean and her health, as well as making sure that things continue to run fairly smoothly in her absence. The daily and weekly hopes and concerns that go along with shepherding a group of faithful people. Making sure I balance my own needs for self-care with the needs of my family, All Saints, and Mosaic. And then there's the stress of simply compiling this list. I worry about what I could include that I'm not including for one reason or another, or what you all will think about this list, whether you'll judge this list as too incomplete or not all that stressful or making mountains out of molehills. We are very rarely stress-free. And sure, some level of stress is helpful, but it can very quickly get to be too much. It can very quickly begin to weigh us down, to make us feel as though we're carrying around a 50-pound boulder that we can't set down, because if we do, we'll never be able to pick it back up again. But here's a partial list of things that stress can do to us. We can get headaches. Stress can cause us to over or undereat. We can feel restless or a lack of motivation. We can experience chest pain or muscle aches. We can feel fatigued or withdrawn. We can stop being motivated to take care of our bodies. Stress is, quite literally, a burden. And so it's not unfitting that the woman Jesus heals is bent over as if she's carrying a great boulder on her back. But I don't want to minimize what she's going through either. One of the commentators that I read this week hypothesized that she may be suffering from a condition called ankylosing spondylitis, which is an inflammatory disease that can cause the vertebrae to fuse over time. If it gets severe enough, it can cause people to be stooped over, so they have to crane their heads to the side to see people's faces, look over their own shoulders to see the stars. Even today, there's no known cause and there's no cure, although treatments are available. It's a painful condition, and it can lead to feelings of frustration, vulnerability, and isolation. If it gets severe enough, it can even lead to heart problems. And that's another stress that some of us may feel, the stress of chronic physical or mental illness and the toll that that takes on top of the stressors of daily life. Now, I want to take just a moment to point out that it can be dangerous to talk about Jesus' healing miracles as a metaphor for the healing that we seek for our own physical or mental illnesses. There is a danger in someone hearing the message that medical or psychiatric help isn't necessary, that all we have to do is believe and Jesus will heal us. So I want to be very clear, that is not what I'm saying. Treatment exists for a reason, and that reason is that it provides very real benefits, sometimes even cures. But the point in our gospel text for today is not the healing that Jesus does. Instead, the point is the disagreement that he has with the synagogue leader over the Sabbath. For Luke, the point of everything, the point of Jesus' entire ministry is mercy. And at its heart, that's the point of the Sabbath as well. We've strayed a long way from that. And that was true almost from the beginning. We are not so different from the ancient Jews. Give us a day to set aside to focus on the intangible grace and mercy of God, and we'll find a way to codify it, to put guardrails up. In other words, to make it all about us. We humans find it easier to understand things that have rules. So early on, Jewish leaders tried to set some ground rules so that the people would understand what was meant by work, since some things have to be done every day, like feeding the kids, making sure they're clean and dry, those sorts of things. There was a lot of back and forth over the millennia. Different sects had slightly different rules, and like anything else, a level of piety played a role in how strictly people held to the Sabbath. But it's important to know, healing was never on the list of things that could not be done. So why does the synagogue leader condemn Jesus over the healing of the woman? We don't know much about her, but we do know she's suffered from this condition for 18 years. That's almost 2 decades of probably not being very productive, almost 2 decades of being dependent on the generosity of others. And if there's anything we know something about, it's the importance of being productive and independent. So why, the synagogue leader may have been thinking, would Jesus choose to focus his mercy on this unproductive charity case? Why not on someone who, quote unquote, deserved it? We're all guilty of that kind of thinking. I think that's part of the stress of listing the things that stress me out. When you listen to my list, will you think I'm deserving of your sympathy, your mercy? Or will you be making your own list in your head, thinking of all of the reasons you're more deserving of the prize that's awarded at the Stress Olympics? This is the question we're confronted with in this morning's gospel text. Who do I think is deserving of healing in body, mind, or spirit? Who do you think is deserving? And who do we think is undeserving? What list would you put yourself on? Do you think God would agree? And if not, how can we get on the same page as God? Over and over, we see that God is pretty consistent with this. The ones who are worthy of having their suffering relieved are the ones who are suffering. Here's a brief bit of history leading up to this morning's Isaiah's text. Babylon has been conquered. The community is now under Persian rule, and the Emperor Cyrus has allowed them to return home and has even given them money to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple. But 100 years after their return, Jerusalem is still a big pile of rubble. The priests have embezzled the offerings of the people and the money given by Cyrus, and they've become the wealthy elite. They're engaging in predatory economic practices, resulting in virtual and sometimes actual slavery of the vulnerable members of their community. They blamed the foreigners in their midst, although in reality, the people they blamed had lived in Israel for generations and were faithful followers of God. The elite are advocating for exclusionary applications of the law, favoring those who are already powerful and wealthy. They're publicly pious, engaging in elaborate rituals to try to please God, but God is not pleased with them. Piety is empty, the prophet tells them, when it is accompanied by judgment and oppression. This morning's text is a roadmap for them to follow, if they will. A way to recover spiritual and community wholeness, a way to return to the presence of God, to make sure that they are on the same page as God. The spiritual and the communal can't be separated. And the community can't be whole and healthy when some members are judged to be less deserving. Verses 10 and 11 can leave us feeling somehow as if this is a transactional matter. If you offer food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, the Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places. But there's a Hebrew word, nephesh, that sheds a different light on matters. This is the word that gets translated in the NRSV, the Bible we use for worship, as offer food and needs. But what it really means is self or soul. Listen again. If you pour yourself out for the hungry and satisfy the self or soul of the afflicted, the Lord will guide you continually and satisfy yourself or soul in parched places. It's hard to judge people if we're pouring ourselves out for them and satisfying their souls. The entire community is lifted up, and space is made for healing to begin. And that's equally true when we're on the receiving end, when we are the ones dealing with stress or with physical or mental illness in need of community support so that we can allow ourselves to begin to believe that we're worthy of healing, that we deserve rest. And that's the other Hebrew word that is central to our texts for today, Shabbat, which we often translate as Sabbath, literally means stop. And that's what Jesus cautions the synagogue leader and us to do. Stop. Stop putting up barriers against grace and mercy. Stop judging whether someone else deserves the time and space to heal. Stop judging whether we deserve the time and space to heal. Instead, make space. Take time to look around at the wondrous world God has created. Take time to breathe in the mercy and grace of God. Take time to focus on Jesus. Take time to soak up the wonders of a community created by God in Jesus so that we can be a blessing to each other and to others, so that we can receive that same blessing. Take time to offer praise or to sit quietly, knowing you are not alone. Take time to rest. Take time to heal.